All right, so the review for the test that's coming up on Wednesday morning. Number one, you need to make sure that you are familiar with the biased limiters. The bias limiters. Okay. As far as the formulas are concerned, there's only really 4 that you need to know. Just make sure that you understand when to use V bias minus 0.7 or minus V bias plus 0.7, and then also V bias plus 0.7 and minus V bias minus 0.7. Okay, those 4 right there you need to know. All you have to do is review your notes. You'll see those formulas basically on how to calculate your bias limiters. So you will have both types. You'll have the ones that are opposing, okay, where you have a negative on the cathode of the diode facing a positive on the V bias. And then you'll also have the other ones with the positive of the anode on the positive of V bias. Make sure that you understand what the waveform is going to look like on the output. The calculations are not difficult at all. As long as you have the waveforms correct, you should be able to label the voltages correctly on your outputs. Okay, so you'll need to know biased limiters. Make sure that you understand the different ones. All right, you will also need to know clampers. Okay, clampers. There's positive and negative clampers. There will be no loads on these clampers. So you will not have to worry about any kind of calculations as far as determining what RL is. So just make sure you know the direction of the diodes and which way the capacitor is facing. You should be able to determine if the signal is going to be on the positive side or on the negative side. You will label all the voltages accordingly with the new DC reference line and so forth. Also on the test, the voltages will be given in peak to peak, which means that before you start doing your values on these output signals, you need to make sure that you're placing voltage peak, not voltage peak to peak, okay, on your final answers. So keep that in mind, that the peak to peak value is given, but you've been writing your values in volts peak on your examples that we did in class. All right. Also, you will need to make sure that you know how to draw out the entire breakdown characteristics of the Zener diodes. There were 2 parts. There was a graph that was concerning the curve showing the breakdown and the operating region of the Zener diode itself. And there was also another breakdown showing the knee current, the test current, and the maximum current. Make sure you have all that, understand how to draw all that out in detail. You will need both of those, and you will also need to know your Zener diode symbols. You had one for first approximation I gave you, and also one for second approximation. So make sure that you have all that placed in detail on the Zener diodes symbols. All right, finally, you will be actually doing the calculations for the Zener with the variable voltages that we did before. So in this case, you're going to have several different Zener diodes in your circuits. You will be given the spec sheet for the Zener diodes. Please make sure that you are careful when searching up the correct part number, especially when you think about VZ. All the formulas are given to you on the test to calculate the IZM, V out, the VR at IZM, the VN max, the VN minimum, and also the knee current. Okay, so you have all those formulas. It's just a matter of making sure that when you look on the spec sheet that you pick out the correct Zener model numbers that are given to you on the tests. Okay, you're going to have several of those to complete on this test. All right, other than that, that's really all there is to this test. There is a total of 15 questions. That means the questions are worth 6.5 points each. So make sure that you review You have a good understanding of how the limiters work. That's probably the biggest thing, is making sure that you understand if they're opposing or if they're aiding one another. Okay, so review the lectures, review your notes. You've had plenty of examples on doing these types of circuits, so I don't think you'll have any problem with it whatsoever. Does anyone have any questions regarding the test on Wednesday morning?
Yeah, I got one question for the Zener diodes, because I sense it'll be a problem that I get some numbers mixed up. If we input the wrong values, but we do the right calculations, are we still going to get partial credit?
You mean if you calculate the correct values and you just write it down wrong? Is that what you're saying?
No, like, so if we like missed a number on identifying the Zener diode, and then we missed the typical voltage and all that other stuff, but we did the proper calculations, are we still going to be afforded partial credit, or is it just automatically wrong?
No, because on those Zeners, if you get that one part, now if for some reason you got other values correct on it, yes, you'll get partial credit. But if you start off and you have the wrong spec sheet information altogether, then there's no extra points. There's nothing else I can do about that.
Understood.
So that's why I reiterate, to make sure that you have the right part number. I mean, it's just a matter of just going through. What I like to do sometimes is that when I go through it, I'll highlight it or at least circle it just to make sure I don't overlook it. Okay. And not to mention the fact you have plenty of time to do this test. So yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. But sometimes you transcribe on the roundings as far as the final answer and stuff. That's flexible. That's fine. But getting everything wrong on that one question because it's a wrong part number, then yeah, that's the wrong calculations.